And good evening, everyone. Welcome to this live edition of the Fieldhouse Files. I'm Scott Agness, who covers the team every single day for you, right here on YouTube and as well at fieldhousefiles.com. Let's talk. Let's talk about the fever. Let's talk about the injuries, and let's talk about Caitlyn Clark and the latest injury that I put out and discovered about and reported exclusively at fieldhousefiles.com. It was a gloomy day, even more than we knew about in Phoenix a couple weeks ago. Before Sydney Colson's injury, before Aari McDonald suffered a season-ending injury as well, it was Caitlyn Clark who got injured, tweaking her left ankle. It's a mild bone bruise, but it's something she's had to deal with over the last couple of weeks, and something that is obviously factoring in her potential return here. And I will stress this here because I know a lot of people are questioning different things. Caitlyn hopes to play this season. The Fever hopes she plays this season. Everybody wants to see her back this season. It's all about body willing. And I mean, it's just the most unusual thing for Caitlyn, right? Given the fact that she is not a player that's dealt with injuries. This is all so new to her. So it's also been terribly frustrating. See, there you go. I come on here, go alive, and you say she's out for this. No, Caitlyn wants to be back. The goal was to be back already, to be clear. Nobody's pushing her out for the season. I don't know why fans keep insisting on this. Not at all. There's no more tickets to be sold, by the way. This is not an average Pacers game or anything else, right? The tickets were sold. They probably were sold back in May. I don't know that, but tickets are sold. You certainly would impact TV viewing if she played. Already, you're still seeing a decline in viewers when she plays, but still up from where the league was a year and a half. Sorry for that little rant, but we got to stop with the nonsense. If you don't know what you're talking about, if you're just assuming you know what that means, it's a bad look to assume. But this is a case where Caitlyn is busting her ass. Caitlyn is doing everything possible to get out there. She wants to be out there. I included in my story today her talking both about, these are older quotes. She has not talked, to be clear, since the All-Star break and All-Star weekend here in Indianapolis. But there's obvious quotes, or not obvious quotes. There's previous quotes that were so fitting, I felt like, for this situation. One, about how she feels not just an obligation, but a feeling where she wants to be there for fans. So whether she's playing or not, she is still going around the lower entry bowl area and signing as many autographs as she can in like a 10 to 20 minute period. I've covered the NBA here for more than a dozen years. You know how many NBA players show up to the arena, sit in the locker room, and don't even come out? Or if they do, it's right at game time. Caitlyn's a special. She's remarkable at just 23 years old that she understands the big picture. She understands, and she said this, that she recognizes how families are pouring a lot of money, vacation money. She recognizes that, fans are traveling from overseas, from London, from Australia, from Sweden. There's several different countries I've heard of. Less so, I guess, this season. Certainly last season, I heard more about it, probably because it was fresh and new, right? She understands it's not just an obligation, but she feels a great pull because she used to be that young girl at games. Her first interaction was with Maya Moore, and she hasn't forgotten about it. And then the second thing is she wants to be there to support her teammates every single game. And you can see her. If you go to games, you know what I'm talking about. During timeouts, she's in the huddle. She's, especially lately, speaking up about certain things that she's seeing out on the court, especially to those new guards that they're rotating through with these 7-day hardships exceptions. I don't envy this position of Caitlyn that she's in, because this is what I've said all along, going back to the first injury she had the first week of training camp. And that was, she's got to be selfish about her own body and return when she's ready. And she is not yet ready, and that is okay for her. Obviously, it sucks. I'd like to be covering Caitlyn. You would like to be watching her. Millions of fans would like to be watching her. That's just the reality. And I don't know what's going on with the Indiana Water right now. Tyrese Halliburton, season-ending injury. Then you have three other Fever players suffered season-ending injuries. Sydney Colson, Aari McDonald, and the latest was to Sophie Cunningham on Sunday. It was in her right knee, a torn left MCL. Better than some had expected. but MCL is much better than ACL. But it takes time. And right now, you don't have time for her to be patient and for her to be caught, you need her back out there. But you don't have that. You're not afforded that time right now. Sorry, I'm getting some messages. You're not afforded that time given where you are this late in the season. I have a lot more I can share. I can answer your questions as well. I try to do a combination of those. Happy to answer some questions here. We don't need to make assumptions. If I don't know, I won't know, and I won't share. But if I do, let's share it. Let's talk. Let's try to make sure everybody is on the same page and understanding of all the different things that this team is going through, because it is a lot. No doubt about this. Stephanie White said it well today. Just she's not sure she's experienced all they have this season in her lifetime in basketball. That dates back to the 90s here in Central Indiana and such, and then going on to Purdue. It has just been so much. It's a season decimated by injuries, and remarkably, they're not just in the playoff hunt. They're right there in the thick of things. Currently 6th. You have 9 games left. Oddly, you have 3 of them against the best team in the league in the Minnesota Lynx, including a back-to-back Friday, Sunday, home and home. But a lot going on. Right now, we'll see what the latest becomes as Caitlyn works her way back from multiple injuries. Because, look, she's dealt with about a half dozen of them this season, starting with that quad strain that we saw in camp. And it's really just been one thing after another. And so many doctors and physical therapists and head athletic trainers will tell you, like, the body's connected like that. If you're favoring one side, something might happen on the other. It's just all connected. And so that's something they watch closely, and a reason not to come back immediately or so quickly until you are ready to try to prevent circumstances like this. But again, as I reported at fieldhousefiles.com, I understand, by the way, not everybody wants to pay, and that's fine by me. But I also realize, look, I got to run a business. I got to make a living. And so, yes, I did put most of it behind the paywall. You fans have been asking for the minutia, for all the details, for as much as we know to pass it along. So that's what I did in that story on a number of fronts. If it's not for you and you don't want to pay, that's fine. Just don't complain about us not providing additional context and such, like I try to provide in the videos, during interviews, and certainly with my stories there. But yes, I do understand not everybody can or wants to pay. Cool by me. What else? I did want to touch on, so it happened. Worst thing about it, couple sources telling me, worst thing about it happened at the very end of a workout session. Just awful luck, right? You feel good. She's looking good. And then one bad step on a defensive series, and boom, frustration. Because, just awful timing. Not that there's any good timing, to be clear. But now that's, excuse me, now that's something she and the team having to deal with. And it's also a situation I should make clear as well, that she is working so hard, I'm told, behind the scenes, just living in the training room and making frequent trips up north to do the hyperbaric chamber. And there's a lot of phone calls and a lot of conversations. The front office, I've told, is actively involved in this. Medical staff actively involved in this. Her agents actively in this. They're all wanting the same thing. We all want for Caitlyn Clark to return to the court so we can see her, but also this team more at fuller strength. I can't even say full strength, given everything that has happened here this season. All right, let me run through some of the comments. Anything wild, I'm just going to ignore, but happy to try to clarify and try to share what I do know. Many things I probably don't, but let's get to it. There doesn't seem to be enough practices for her to be back this season. Again, I think that's an assumption there, right? Because think about it, on game day, she could be, it's not a team practice, but she could be getting a workout in. I think it's also fair to conclude here that, you're not going to get the entirety of a practice. Like you don't have 2 weeks to treat it like a training camp by any means. But that's why you're trying to have a slow ramp up period to a return. That's why she was doing that workout, for example, in Phoenix. And why before that even, we heard the team talk about her running down the sideline and working on her cardio, because that's a whole other conversation we should probably add in all this, by the way, is she hadn't played basketball, true basketball, game basketball, in more than a month. And so you're out of basketball shape. You don't have your game rhythm, your game timing, your feel as much. Now, obviously, she is a 1% of 1% within the WNBA and basketball. But yeah, that's something to also keep in mind as she tries to make this return here whenever that does happen. Now, in terms of practices, like you referenced, Emily, you're going to have a couple you can certainly get into. And then I think within practices, you're also talking about shoot-arounds as well. And many of the players are the same, but at the same time, they've cycled through those hardship players. So getting to know them a little bit. Now, being around practice and traveling with them certainly helps and can help streamline it. No, it's not going to be perfect, but you're not looking for perfect. You're looking for her to be healthy and to contribute in any which way she can. A whole nother conversation I'll probably save is maybe you get a different version of her coming back. Just because of all the different things she's dealt with this season. And yeah, you want to figure out what's best for her and the team to close out the rest of the season and try to make that playoff push, because this team has not given up, to their credit. All right, sorry, a lot of long-winded answers. Let's try to get through these. Christopher, why are they so secretive about injuries? It feels like if this was Tyrese, there would be more information given out. Look, every team is secretive about injuries. Rick Carlisle never gives starting lineups beforehand. Some coaches do, some don't. I think it doesn't much matter. Are you going to go in there in the locker room and hold a 30-minute session about this guy starting over somebody? No. The other thing is, from a team standpoint, I don't think you're wanting to give regular daily updates. Hey, it didn't look good today. Hey, it looked great today. Hey, she's still progressing. Hey, she got a 4-hour training site. Like, there's also a balance. I agree. More info would be better. But I also stressed I've had this cough for like a month. It's ridiculous. Excuse me. I've also stressed since the original official press release how they didn't put a timeline on it. And for that, I liked it because, look, a lot of different odds and ends can happen, and this is the latest example of a possibility. Many times it doesn't. Sometimes it does. But the challenge in all this is if you set that timeline, then you set a baseline for a setback. And sometimes it's not necessarily the case. Every player will tell you their body's different. I mean, there's certain Pacer players, for example. Benedict Mathurin, that dude, I think, plays almost immediately after injuries. It's remarkable. I think also the younger you are certainly helps as well. So, yes, would I like more information? Absolutely. But I think I also have sympathy for a team for trying to not give daily updates and try to provide updates as necessary when big steps are made. Hope that answers your question. Is there any time to practice? Yeah, I kind of answered that earlier. There's certainly some time to get practice in. For example, like Saturday, like Monday, next week, Wednesday, Thursday, you have no game. There's time also. And that's just looking a week ahead of time, for example. So, excuse me. So no, there's not 5 days in a row after this week, obviously, where they're having 4 days between games. No, there's not that. But there's several practice days plus some shoot-arounds that you can mix it in, and you go from there. T Smiles, you're welcome. Appreciate it. Oops, this just skipped to the very end. Let me try to catch up and get some questions here. Why are there conflicting reports? I don't know. I haven't read what Chloe wrote. I wrote my story. I broke that news and provided a lot of details in that, and I stand by my reporting. Talked to many different sources in this from all different angles. Let me say that as well. Maybe they should have said something was good. She was going to be out 6 to 8 weeks from the beginning, so people would be more realistic. Excuse me. This is ridiculous in its own right. To your question, JT, the only thing I think I may have done was, here's the tricky thing, right? Teams will tell you player will be reevaluated on a certain day. The true reality is they're reevaluated every day. So could you have been different in the language? Sure. But it doesn't really change too much. You followed us. None of us reporters, by the way, who are there every day have said Caitlyn's close. Caitlyn's 2 days away. She's day to day. By the way, I'll use this opportunity to debunk something that I think erroneously misled Fever and Caitlyn fans. There's this, I became aware of it because of this. There's this like ESPN injury tracker that was estimating when Caitlyn returns. That comes from like a third-party data site. It was not from the team. It was not from any of us reporters, boots on the ground. We were befuddled. And I think it was purely guesses. It was like, hey, look, August 15th sounds nice. She's day to day. Ignore all that because there was nothing legitimate about that. Nothing changed. Nothing was altered. Nothing happened to push back anything. That was just erroneous. So ignore all that. Don't use that as guidance whatsoever. I think that misled people in this conversation. So that's another thing I did want to clarify while we're on here. Susie, because coach or anyone else will not give a timetable I talked about the timetable earlier. Is CC having pain? Is she sore? She should give us an update. I don't know those specifics. I told you I wouldn't tell you what I don't know. Don't want to assume ever. I don't. But I know she's working through that injury, getting treatment regularly, being evaluated with the medical staff and such. And nobody's trying to be misleading. I also recognize, look, coaching staff, teammates, like they're not medical people. They don't know. They just see Caitlyn out there every day. They got enough to worry about right now when their roster's 8, 9 players, and they just brought in a new player here this week. So those are certain things to keep in mind there. Nobody's trying to be misleading. Everybody wants for Caitlyn to be back. Excuse me. Sorry about this. R. Gibson, I respect her privacy. She's not obligated to share anything. Talking about Caitlyn, no, she's not. She is not. I think the protocol for players is they have to talk within the first 10 days that they are out, and then not again until they return to practice. Caitlyn has not returned to practice. Therefore, she has not been made available. So that's the current circumstances. That's why the league, the Players Association, has that set. Grace, I did talk about the injury. If you have any further questions, please let me know. Cold Spring BS spreading around the Fever. No, I don't know what you're referencing there. I've never talked to Carolyn Peck. I've been in the same room as her during pregame press conferences when she's on the game call as an analyst, but I have not had a one-on-one conversation. They keep saying she will practice before she plays. They don't really have practice time. Yes, that's the plan. I just referenced, and maybe I'm a little bit delayed in getting to these, but there is practice time. No, there's not 5 days in a row, but there is practice time for them to reintegrate her when she is ready. The hope is for them to have a plan this weekend to formulate it and for her to potentially rejoin them next week. That is TBD, but that is the hope at this juncture from all parties, I think, involved. Why are we getting a story about her personality instead of the actual new information? I don't know what story you're referencing there. My story is well-rounded. It's not just a tweet. It's not just 300 words. It was 1,000 words about what's going on, what happened, a lot of new information. We've all been wanting more information. You've been asking for it, so there it is. So there's your new information. That's just wrong. Yeah, she's awesome, but what's the holdup? Her or what? Who decides when she can come back? This is a situation, I think, with all the players where it's a collective decision. And I don't know this specifically, but generally it's the medical staff that makes the final determination, assuming the player's ready to go. And so obviously the player has to sign off on returning, but generally it's the medical staff that makes the final call. They check her out, the doctors, maybe they do another scan, what have you. That's just how it works in these sports. Then if the coach is not willing or not comfortable with the player playing, they wouldn't. But I think it's mostly the medical staff. Look, you lean on the experts, right? The coach coaches, the players play, and the medical staff takes care of the team. And that's what they'll continue to do. It's been an awful season, just terribly bad luck, even going back to mid-June there with Tyrese Halliburton here in central Indiana. But you got to hope brighter days are ahead, right? And so that's the current situation. You can't blame someone for speculating she's going to be out for the season when they're only hearing about an additional complication. Well, did you read the full story? I literally wrote in that story about how they hope for her to return this season. Caitlyn's competitive as hell. One of the most competitive players I've been around. Benedict Matherin's up there. Tyrese is up there, plus all the greats on other teams that I don't regularly cover across the NBA in particular. You don't think Caitlyn wants to be out there? Are you kidding me? This has got to be just killing her. She's talked earlier in the season after her last injury about how this is the hardest basketball season of her life. She's never experienced anything like it. Because also think about the fact that not only are you not playing and contributing, but you feel like it can be isolating. You can feel like you are on the outside and not helping your team and any of that. And so you try to do the best things you can. And so I think that's why she's often standing up during games. She's very often speaking up during huddles before the coaches reach. I see Kelsey Mitchell doing that a lot. Sydney Colson does that a lot. A lot of the veterans as well. When they see something, they're speaking up. Sophie Cunningham's probably the best at it. She doesn't shut up, and she says that, which is hilarious. But it's a communicative group. That's the first thing I noticed during the preseason game is how much and how often they talk. But to your thought there, Basil, yeah, I can blame someone for speculating she's out for the season when no credible reporting has suggested that whatsoever. Again, stick to what we know and what the medical staff says and what has been reported. To me, there's no basis for that, so I don't think you should get your hopes down or be frustration's understandable. I totally get that, absolutely, especially for those season ticket holders who shelled out thousands of dollars. It's nobody's fault. Nobody's wishing on this, and hopefully there's more clarity here to come. Excuse me. I would rather her be healthy than not. It doesn't bother me. Yep, I think that's the right attitude right there. Absolutely, William. This is bad. Might have to end this soon. Sorry about that. I'll see if I can contain it a little bit. Thanks for the update. Everyone needs to back off Steph. Fever organization, tissue injuries, severity of having 4 injuries in her legs takes time. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Soft tissue injuries are tricky. They are difficult. And it even goes back to that start of camp with that quad strain. She's had the groin, the other groin. Excuse me. Apologize. And yeah, and it's one thing after the other. And here's the other thing. When you're trying to come back from one, it's so hard to give it the ample time needed, right? To give it and get back to 100% when you're in the midst of the season, when you're playing 3 and 4 games at a time. That's where you truly need an offseason. But I will say, players at this point in the season, very few are 100%, right? Everybody will tell you they've got something, a little ankle sprain here, a sore hip, a lower back that hurts them. At this point in the year, now we're less than a third of the season remaining. Everybody's dealing certainly with something. Riney, did you enjoy your decade working for the Fever? Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of my ends in sports, no question. Very much removed from that. That wrapped that up back in 2012 and then moved in to become a reporter, primarily covering the Pacers, but also the Fever. And back then it was a lot of Tamika Catchings in particular, right? The Hall of Famer. Lynn Dunn. Brian Winters was the coach before her. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. No question. Helped shape the guy I am today. It actually started to be clear before that with the RCA tennis championships. But I've worked in locker rooms and around sports, then went to IU. And yeah, so it absolutely was great. Thanks for asking. T Smiles. I think people are nervous about the talk track of Caitlyn needing practices before playing, but the schedule not really. I think I've answered that to this point. Callie, honestly, CC will be back when she's back. Why does everybody need to know or feel okay making an exception? I think it's just the greediness of being a fan. Absolutely. I get that. She's most of your probably favorite player. She's the best player on this Indiana Fever team. She's one of the best players in the league. So I do understand the interest, the greed, the hope for Caitlyn to be back. No question. But I also realize most of us haven't been in her shoes. basically everyone has not been in her shoes with a few exceptions. But we also have not been professional athletes and know what that grind is like. Yes, you might now get chartered flights and 5-star hotels, but a season, it's wear and tears on you for sure. And then the injuries pile up. And right now, like emotionally and mentally, what these players have to be dealing with just in terms of seeing teammate after teammate go down, just brutal. So I think we should all recognize that and appreciate that as well. Am I going on EA's playback? I don't know what that is. Sorry. JT, we all know Caitlyn wants to play, but emotionally, she is probably worried about getting hurt again. Again, there's an assumption that I just don't know that there's any factual basis for. What practice time will she have back? Once again, let me repeat. Let's just look ahead to next week. You have Monday. You could do a shoot around Tuesday. You could have Wednesday. You have Thursday. You have Saturday. I don't think people understand. Look, there's empty dates on the calendar here. Next week, I just pointed to 4 or 5 times you could get a session in. Keep in mind, it doesn't have to be an entirety of a practice with the Fever. They're limited on numbers right now. Maybe it's going against the practice guys. Maybe it's 3-on-3 with the bottom of the roster. What they are trying to do is ramp her up. I would not get caught up on this practice time. And more so, is she healthy and is she comfortable out on the court entirely? And that ankle sprain, that alters it a little bit. We've seen her limp a little bit over these last couple of weeks. No question about that. Still trying to get that back to a comfort and stabilized. There's a lot to that. And so that's what they're working on certainly right now. I'm rambling. Okay. Have any other questions? Whoever's the Fever strength and conditioning coach, we don't need to go there. Who decides when she comes back? I think I already answered this, so maybe I'm a little bit behind here. What I find totally insane are the people blaming coaching staff for these injuries. Totally agree. Like, I'm not sure where blame can be given, honestly. It's just bad luck. Unfortunate, right? Like Sydney Colson, torn ACL in the corner. Aari McDonald driving down the lane, steps weird, and suffers a broken bone in her foot. Even that collision there with Hartley and Sophie Cunningham, nobody's to blame. That was just a good, hard play. Sophie came, excuse me. Sophie came over weak side, did exactly what she's supposed to do. Hartley was attacking the basket and continued on trying to score. That's exactly what she's supposed to do. So I totally agree. I don't know why we need to force the assignment of blame whatsoever. Additional context would be actual information. I think I've provided a lot of that, including about 5 or 6 different tidbits, where it happened, when it happened, at the end of practice, what foot, the concern level. By the way, none of this existed like 2 hours ago. So I don't know what the complaints are about. Everybody wanted more information. So here we are, and I'm still happy to answer more questions. She's not practicing today, which is on the week that was promised she'll get up to speed. No, there was nothing promised about this week whatsoever. So I think that was a lot of speculation because of what a lot of you have mentioned in the comments. A lot of you have mentioned, hey, look at the schedule. There's ample practice time, 4 days between games. The team, I've been there every practice, and the team has never said, hey, she'll return to practice this date, or we're targeting that week. They have not said that whatsoever in terms of a specific date or timeline. Steph said the injury was a blessing in disguise. How do you write an article right after that about toxic CC fans? Well, first of all, you got to realize as a head coach, you got to rally the troops. You got to find the optimism, the positive side of everything. So no, nobody wants Caitlyn out. Absolutely not. But what you're saying is, here, with that aside, now we're getting to see what the other players are looking at. That's what you're trying to find, the bright side in everything. And so it's not putting down Caitlyn whatsoever. What it is saying, hey, look, we're getting a better look. How many of you were clamoring to see Michaela Timpson early on in the season, right? There were no minutes for her. A lot of players in front of her. Well, now that has changed, and she's got minutes. They've needed Brianna Turner, and she stepped up, especially in that last game. Really impressive. That's what she's trying to reference. Of course, it's not saying it's a blessing that Caitlyn got hurt. And in terms of toxic fans, yes, I should not have said CC fans in particular. What I'm getting at is the fans you all know about. It's the ones that don't have an avatar, that don't have a name, and are just purely toxic and here to create madness everybody should be fired. Everybody's wrong. That's what I was getting at. That sentence really was unnecessary. Yes, we are aware she's been rehabbing. Okay, I don't know what you're getting at there. Let's talk about the professional negligence that led to these injuries. I don't know what you're referencing there, Britt. Please be more specific. There's no time left now because all the rest of the games are so close together. That's not true. They can find some time there. You said the able tweak affected timeline. I never said it affected her timeline. Chloe said the opposite. Look, the ankle injury is helping to keep her out. No question. I don't know what other reporters are putting. I'm telling you what I reported in the original story. And what I've had is multiple sources telling me she's getting daily treatment on that ankle injury. First of all, in conjunction with that groin injury. The groin injuries are doing well, though. Absolutely. And that's a positive in all this. She's gotten ample rest time for the groin injuries. And so that is a positive. But there's no doubt this ankle injury has bothered her, and it's something that she's working towards getting back out on the court. No question about that. I don't know who this Rennie is, but you're highly negative and totally wrong. Yes, I used to be employed by the Fever. Absolutely. That's more than almost 15 years ago. They are not calling me on the regular basis by any means or anything like that. So to think I'm a shell for them or whatever you're trying to get at, I know them, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything or should not suggest anything. So I don't know why you are suggesting that. Again, it goes back to what we started at the beginning of this conversation here. Is anyone looking out for Cece's mental? I know she's mentally strong, but very hard for her to deal with. Absolutely. I know there's a lot of people close to her. I know she texts often with Tyrese Halliburton, who's going through similar thing with an injury right now. Obviously, her boyfriend, her family is very strong in all that. Fever have a sports psychologist. They have a mental coach as well. So I'm sure they've all factored in and helped her. That's a good question. Absolutely. Steph isn't going to. All right, that's weird. Thanks for all the intel. Glad to help. Trying to provide as much as I know, just because I know there's been a lot of question marks, and so that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of here and share and have an open dialogue, right? As far as I know, has she felt anything in her groin since that Seattle game when it occurred? The groin injury was Connecticut and Boston. I don't know that specifically if she's heard it or it's been painful. But I know that's doing well. She's progressing very well, and they are hopeful to see her back practicing as soon as next week. But no timeline has been set or updated, to be clear. Nothing like that. Appreciate it, Patricia. Yeah, absolutely. If you don't want to be here, if you don't want to pay, that's totally fine. Do whatever you like. I'm just here to take care of my followers, subscribers, and anyone that wants to have a conversation about maybe the team you like or players you like whatsoever. All this info has been sketchy. All these reports have contradicted each other. Just say she's out for again, Ash. No, that's not at all true. And I don't know what other info you're talking about. I referenced earlier that disinformation with ESPN and that database. I don't know where that came from or why that's a thing, guesstimating on players' return. But that has caused a lot of chaos because that's led to people tweeting, hey, she could return August 15th. No. There's no plan. She hadn't even practiced. I don't know. I think that was just a third-party data thing, as I explained earlier. Nope, that's not true, Mason. Yeah, I'm getting that vibe. Haven't heard much about Breanna Stewart's injury. Then unknowns. Why don't you share it? What unknowns? What unknowns are you referencing? I'm way too defensive to appear partial. I'm defensive about accurate information. And I'm also defensive about not making assumptions, things like that. I'm definitely impartial to the situation. I'm an outside observer covering this team as I have on a daily basis for the last couple of years, but even going back for the last decade. It's just, look, a decade ago, there was not much interest. I would spend a couple of weeks on a feature story and it just didn't get the interest. I'd love to see where this league is going and the number of writers that have come into the league and the number of games that are brought. Now you can watch any game, anytime with League Pass. And so many of them are on national TV, the progress that we've seen from the league. Now, expansion, maybe I'm not so sure about right now. I would need to see teams get more players on their roster so that you're not, and this isn't just the Fever, this is so many teams throughout the league, is you have these hardship exceptions that they're constantly having to sign players, release players. And so to me, teams should have like 2 players on standby. I don't know if you treat it like a practice squad, but it's 2 players getting less money, but they're there every day. They can practice. They're even traveling with the team. And if injuries arise, you don't have to go sign someone totally random off the street that might be in LA or playing overseas in Greece. You bring them up from, I don't know, a practice squad or whatever you want to call them. They can figure that out. That's one of the big things we need to see with this new collective bargaining agreement. Absolutely. This Fever season is going to make a heck of a documentary. Very well might. I don't know with all the downs, but there were some ups, certainly. But with so many downs, is it compelling enough for people to watch it when star player out? You do have 3 All-Stars. You do have the All-Star game here in Indianapolis and such. I think it's something some networks might be interested in, but I think they'd be a whole lot of interested in a successful season where you're maybe reaching the finals or winning a championship. Winning sells a lot more, but you're right. There have been a lot of storylines this season, a season I've coined the season of disruption because there's been so much going on, whether it's the several different injuries in the first couple of weeks of camp, to Caitlyn, to Sophie, to Damiris Dantas, to Dantas going and leaving the team for a couple weeks, having to play for a national team, to Stephanie White having a death in the family, and being away from the team for a couple of games. Just so many things, in addition to injuries, have made this unusual. Oh, and Dewana Bonner wanting out like a month into the season. You just do not see that at a professional level. NBA gives timelines on injuries. They're the clear difference. Would have had a Shams report. Not necessarily. It's all about what the team and agents wants out there. If they're not sharing information, I don't know what to tell you. I cover the NBA. I know very well. And the Pacers, for example, are now not putting timelines. Haven't put timelines on many injuries over the last couple of years. I get it. I heard my radio spot yesterday. I mentioned the team's current goal to have Caitlyn by the end of the month and hopefully get back to practice by the end of the week. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been saying here. Yeah, by the end of the month, that you got another 10 days here or so for that possibility to still be true here. A setback is fine as long as there's clarity. I don't view this as a setback. Oh, crap. I lost it now. Oh, wow. There's a lot more comments. I think I'm well behind here. My bad. There's a lot of comments here. Let me catch up. Sorry about that. Damn, one information. This literally feels like damage control. No, this was me with a story that I reported here this afternoon. Did one of the coaches step on Caitlyn's ankle during a game? Yes, that was the game following the injury. You're referencing when they returned home from the road trip on August 9th and played the Chicago Sky. Yes. Caitlyn's left foot was accidentally stepped on. Yes. Caitlyn was able to run and jog all these times. I don't know what all these times is, but yes, she has been running, jogging, testing the groin, and now recently the ankle injury. Let's see. What is this? Sorry, it's flying through these comments. I wish it'd stop a little bit better. She was day-to-day after the injury. No, she was not. She was never day-to-day after this injury, the groin, and then now the ankle. But with the groin, no, they set no timeline and said they would take a long-term approach, and no new injuries were found at that time, but there would be no timeline to return. Let's see. They don't get days off after games. Listen to Kelsey Mitchell here today. Go back on my YouTube to what Kelsey Mitchell had to say. Yes, they do get days off, but there's a lot that goes into it. It may not be a formal practice, but you might have a film session. Usually you have a film session and weight training. If you're not playing, you definitely are getting a workout out on the court, but it's not a true off day like you're thinking for these players when they're off, in terms of don't even go to the facility, don't care, and don't do anything at all. There's always something to be done, whether it's go in, have a nice breakfast, lift weights, maybe meet with a coach and find ways to get better. What brought up the ankle injury today? I reported it. That's what brought it up. Can you tell your sources? No, you never tell sources. It seems the team is keeping her out on purpose. Okay, well, we're going to ignore on that. That's not true. You're welcome, Patricia. Thanks for joining. Do I think she will come back? Yes, I do. I don't know when because they don't know when. Do you think she will come back? Answered that. Did she injure her ankle? Yes, I reported that at Fieldhouse Files earlier today, and it's why I'm doing this live session, so we can chat, answer your questions, and detail everything I talked about. Haley asks how many practices are needed. There's no specific number. I think it's one of those you go through probably a couple, see how she feels, see how the coaches feel, and then go from there. Again, I do think she will come back. That is the plan. She has a strong desire to play. The team wants to see her play. Look, they're on a playoff push. This isn't all for nothing. They have an end game here, and that's to advance in the playoffs and do as much as they can here. So, yes, I do expect that. Scott, the team is giving a timeline different than the ESPN estimation. You as an ESPN excuse. I don't know what you're referencing there. The team has not given a timeline, and ignore the ESPN estimation. I think the team is, they don't get an update. They just repeat the same things in a different way. Maybe the front office should update. Perhaps. Maybe. I did request the GM last week. I will say that. Have not gotten that, but we try to get some clarity. Absolutely. Even more. Mostly that was in regards to just rotating so many of these players as you try to stabilize that guard spot. I think that's something that would be interesting to hear from, for sure. I think the challenge, big picture, is that without more information, narratives are created. Fair or not, that's just what happens. And so that becomes the challenge. Yes, Mr. Finesse, I do expect her to return, but don't quote me. Look, things can change, but yes, I fully expect for her to try to give it a go and return this season. There's a strong desire from everybody for her to be out there. They said she would be out 4 to 6 weeks. No, they did not. There has never been a timeline for her to return. For those demanding apologies, why are you here? Hostage vibes. With all these times you say she can practice even on games days. I'm saying you're going through a walkthrough. And there's coaches that can go through certain things with you, right? You can get in different things. Maybe you guys aren't privy to what a shoot around is or what a practice is, especially late in the season. You're not having an all-out practice. It's not physical. It's not 3 hours. You're not battling the guys the entire time. You're doing a lot of scout. You're fine-tuning different things, and then you're making adjustments based on your personnel right now. That is the news I'm looking for. A mouthpiece for the front office. That's interesting. Definitely not true, but Scott, your sound man should be let go. Your sound is being recorded. Is my sound not good? Let me know. Why did ESPN report that she would be practicing this week? I don't know. I don't know of that report, so I can't answer to what somebody else said. I don't know if that's a legitimate report or if that's that injury report you're referencing. If you don't have something, shut up. This man can't be trusted. Why is that? I literally told you information that you wanted here today. If you don't, feel free to not watch. Should I have the mindset realistically? No, you should not. You should have hope, optimism. Read between the lines. She has not returned to practice. She won't. I don't know why so many of you keep assuming she's not going to be back this season. There is no reason to come to that conclusion here with 3 weeks left whatsoever. I agree with Susie. You want her to be 100%, but you'd like for her to return. So we'll see. Did the injury return when it stepped on her ankle? No, that was 2 days later. That was August. What are we in? August 9th. The injury happened August 7th on the road in Phoenix. Ramsey, that's a really good question. Really good question, probably for a different time. But how will Caitlyn's injuries affect the CBA negotiation? It could significantly. I think we should save that for the offseason, but that is a great question in a number of ways for the value she brings to the team, the value she brings to the league. Talking about injuries and trying to play in this condensed schedule has not been helpful for anyone across the league. I haven't looked here this week, but wasn't it last week when like 9 stars on 13 teams were out? Like, that's not good for anyone. And then to have too many hardship players. There's a lot that goes into those CBA negotiations, more than just the money here. And I think it starts with roster size, length of the season, back-to-backs, all those different things. Let's see. We are aware where's the real info? There is no estimated timeline. Although, as I wrote in my story here, the hope would be next week. Let's see. I don't know why a lot of you keep asking the same question. Now, given I might be a little bit behind because there's a lot of questions I'm trying to keep up with. No, I wouldn't expect for her to play in Europe. Why would she do that? Please do more than other Clarkies. They are now mad, but keep it basketball. Yeah, there's a lot of negativity on YouTube. There's also a lot of people just recording and saying outlandish things and trying to fire people and trying to make proclamations about a player's status who don't even know the team. They're just there for YouTube and such. So just as I've told a lot of people on here, be careful of what you consume and where you get your info. Is that individual there every day? Is it a national reporter or is it just someone randomly on here? That's important to know. Lauren said, Chloe said ankle injury didn't change timeline, would still be rehabbing. You stated, look, that's what yes. I can tell you the ankle has definitely impacted Caitlyn's current status. Absolutely. I've talked to about a half dozen sources about this situation. And it's a case here where, yes, she is bothered by the ankle injury. Absolutely. Just telling you what I know. Do you think Shay's stats reflect that she's a good addition? We'll see. Again, it's hard to guesstimate how she'll look with this group, a team she's been with for just a couple of days. She definitely has a lot more experience than Kyra did. And that was the big reason they made that change to the hardship, directly related to Sophie being out for the season. Is the coaching staff wanted more of a veteran influence, someone who had played in the WNBA, been more familiar with the players in this situation. That's an emergency rule, right? You're not expecting that player to come in, start, and play 40 minutes a game whatsoever. Odyssey Sims has done a nice job. I was surprised to see her do so well last game. I think, 19.7 assists, I want to say. And in addition to that, played a game-high minutes. I forget what it was, maybe 42 or something pretty high, given that it went into an overtime session. But reality is you hope she can give you maybe a couple good bursts per game and go from there. How will she fit in? I'll wait to see for sure, because all we did see was at the end of practice them running some baseline or sideline out of bounds sequences, and that's about it. So there's no real grand conclusion that I can make based off that. Julia, as I said earlier, don't mind if people don't want to pay, but I have a business to run. If you're critiquing the injury, nobody else had put this out there. Everybody was wanting more info, so here it is. And it is a mild injury, but it's not without note here. So just thought that should be noted here when it comes down to it. Just sharing what I can, as there's a thirst for information, and we're all trying to get more clarity and truth on this situation. That's all it comes down to. You're welcome to not participate, not read. Does not hurt my feelings whatsoever. You start pushing the organization for a better update. They have given the same update for 3 weeks. I think next week you better have an update next week. That should clarify things a little bit more. After you've had, by now, that would have been some quieter time for her to get reevaluated even more. And so I think next week, hopefully there is a more substantial update. but it remains to be seen. I do think stories talking about all of things she's doing daily and get back would be helpful. People seem to have no clue how hard she is working. The challenge is Caitlyn's not required to do media, therefore she's not doing media. And so we don't know all the different things she's doing. Now, she has talked about it in the past. Red light therapy, hot and cold tub, hyperbaric chamber, daily treatment, private and personal. It's so many different things that goes in, but it's really hard to do a story like that without the participation from the individual who is getting all that type of treatment, right? And also from a team standpoint, they're not wanting to divulge all that, right? You want to keep some of that private of how you're protecting a player or how you're rehabbing a player. But yes, I agree. It would be great information for sure. Another person here questioning attendance? No, not at all. I don't know why that's going on here. You're not worried about attendance right now, and so you're hiding information. That's just not true. You certainly not in this situation where tickets have been sold and they're still getting great attendance, upwards of 16,000, several sellouts every couple games. I can tell you that is not the furthest thing from their mind right now. All it is about Caitlyn and this Fever team getting healthy as a whole. It goes well beyond Clark because this team has been battered and had several different things negatively derail this season. But look, they're still in the thick of it here with the postseason. Should make the postseason for the second straight year, although tough 9 games remaining, including 3 against the best team in the league. So nothing is given. If you could split these final games, that would do wonders. That's why some of these tiebreakers have been really critical for them to try to win. Some they've lost, some they've won. But that's certain things you need to pay attention to here in the final 3 games. Lisa asks, is Ember talks of shutting down for the season? Look, that's a great question. So many of you are assuming. As far as I know, there have not been. That I have not heard any talks about saying, hey, throw in the towel. Not at all. She wants to get back. This team's fighting for a playoff spot, and they want to see how far they can take them, as they should. The season's 4 or 5 months. That's it. And then you have the duration of the offseason to get better. Carol, yeah, there you go. I appreciate that. Let's see. How are you removed from it if you're reporting for them with special? I don't know what you're trying to say there. Lexi probably has to walk around in a full body cast between games. Yeah, she's been one of the outstanding players that's continuing to give it all. All of them have. Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, really this entire roster has been really impressive. All right. Again, why would you say it's doubtful she's coming back when you have a hope and expectation for her to return? A lot of you, I don't know why you're making assumptions here. That has been my overwhelming, surprising takeaway here from this whole thing. Maybe it's just because she's been out and you forget what it's like seeing her out on the court, but I don't know why you'd want to wish for any player not to play the rest of the season if healthy. Did anyone ask at Caitlyn herself why she didn't practice? No. Caitlyn is not talking to the media. She was on the opposite side of the court. They don't walk by us. So no. And that there was no opportunity to even do so. It's not like she's hanging out with us. Come on now. Let's see. Are they going to rush her back without consideration for practice? No. This team is not going to rush her back. I can tell you that. You say CC is emotionally worried about getting hurt. I have never said that. I still believe they'll make the playoffs. I do too. I do. I think this team has been so hard, such a group that has been battle tested, that has played for each other. They're really well connected, I can say. Even this group that we see, that's kind of the walking wounded. I mean, doesn't it say a lot that Aari McDonald, Sydney Colson can't play the rest of the season? They are around every day. They're in huddles every day. I think that's remarkable. They don't need to do that. They want to. I'll be shocked if they make the playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked. They do have a tough schedule coming up, no question. So it's realistic if they could miss it. But I think right now at this juncture, I would expect for them to make it. But again, it's hard to say. 3 weeks, 9 games left. So we'll see. I appreciate Sophie while listening to her podcast asking everyone to stop attacking Bria Hartley. Absolutely. I appreciated that as well. And Sophie's such a good podcaster. Aaliyah Boston's got a podcast as well, something I plan to write. Sydney Colson, too. It's interesting. There's several prominent voices on this Fever roster. Excuse me. I've moved to the podcast space and maximizing their brand and giving fans what they want. Sophie is so good because she's always authentically herself. And that's certainly led to her being fined, I think, in each of the first 3 episodes. But look, she's going to be herself and have fun with it, be playful. She's energetic. She's balls of fun. And I thought the biggest thing that she said on this last one that I thought was revealing and telling guys here is she said, look, I love this team. This situation was perfect for me. And I found my joy of basketball again. So that's outstanding. You got to love that. Let's see. ESPN said the plan was targeting this week. We assume that came from the team. I don't know. Again, I can't speak to someone else's reporting there. I did talk about Shea Petty there briefly. I talked about her on my YouTube video. Mostly it's a veteran guard that hopefully can be a stopgap is as needed here for the next week. And then we'll see. Remember, they cannot bring in a hardship player for Sophie Cunningham until she misses at least 1 game. So that would be after Friday's game. Jessica, is it an ankle sprain or a bone bruise? It's a bone bruise on her ankle there, which is why she tweaked her ankle. It was not a full ankle sprain or anything like that. It's a bone bruise that she's dealing with. Therefore, I'm sure it's painful. I haven't talked to her, but I'm sure given that and seeing her reaction when she got stepped on, she was in pain. There was a promise. The 5 days were ample amount. They said Caitlyn would. Nobody has said that. I don't know where you guys are getting this, but there was nothing said, released, tweeted, nothing about Caitlyn absolutely returning to practice this week or anything like that. Look, if there was, it'd be on my site. There'd be a YouTube video about it. That is major news. They have not said that. It's certainly something you could see on the calendar was a possibility in an area that just made common sense. But I think it's just a guesstimate there. I don't know if that was an ESPN report or what have you. I saw this man. No, they're not making this Kelsey Mitchell's team at all. I don't know what you're getting that from whatsoever. I promise you. They appreciate and are grateful for Caitlyn and want her back as much as anyone. No doubt about that. What are the chances Caitlyn plays for the Liberty next year? 0. Why would the Fever have her under contract? I don't know what the questions are. Tickets for the playoffs are coming out very soon, so they're leaving the door open to sell out. You don't think those will sell out, whether Caitlyn's there or not? I think they would. I don't know that. I presume they would. All you can do is wish the Fever girls the best. Hope for a good season. Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that, Lyra. Earned yourself a block there. I don't know what that means. Okay, the ankle injury is contributing. Yeah, absolutely. This is no. Why would she demand a trade? That's silly. I'm getting a lot of crazy comments now. I'll try to pass on those. No, I don't know how many practices are needed. I think it's based on a player, how comfortable she is, and how comfortable both the medical staff and coaching staff is as well. Let's see. Lyra, appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on here. Hopefully this has brought some clarity and been a fun conversation in what has been a rough season, generally from a personnel standpoint. Still, the Fever are going to have a 20-win season. They're going to be on the cusp of the playoffs, and right now would make it as the 6th seed. But so much is in flux. So much could change over the next 3 weeks that we'll have to play it out. Let's see. It's just an opinion on social media. I don't know what's going on here, but that's silly. Yes, I reported new information on an injury that happened back on August 7th. Absolutely. Yep. Brand new information that people have been wanting. There you go. If you don't want it, that's fine. Let's see. Dang it, it skipped on my I lost where I was here on the comments section. Bear with me here as I try to get caught up. Let's see. All right, I'm just going to jump in where I see fit. Is she likely to come back on away trips? They primarily only have road. Yeah, I don't think it matters home or away. Good question. Yeah, it is getting ridiculous for sure. You'd like to see her back there, but look, you got to have ample time for her to get back there. No, it did not get hurt by the coach stepping on it. You think it would just suddenly hurt like that? That's not true. Everyone is making assumptions because there has been no timeline. There has not been a timeline ever. And this is why. Because if you go one day past it, there's concern. There's a ballpark, and that's fine. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. But that's okay. But there's been no timeline specifically for this reason. Amoya asks, why did they rush her back the first 3 times? I don't know if that's necessarily true. That's something we'll have to ask Caitlyn about when we get that opportunity, if she felt that. Look, the reality is, if Caitlyn wasn't comfortable coming back any of those times, she wouldn't have, right? You think she was going to sit out that game at Iowa? 0 chance. Now, for the long term, it probably would have been nice. Absolutely. But you think she was going to sit that game out? No chance. Not at all. David, they won't let y'all ask her anything. I don't know who you mean there, but if you're talking about Caitlyn, correct. There's no media availability with her until she resumes practice time. Otherwise, it would be great. All right, let's see. Sophie went out. Why didn't you get a wing? She's been playing guard. Sophie's been the primary ball handler for the most part until Odyssey Sims got in here. So you're trying to get guard play. You're trying to solve guards, given the fact that you have 4 ball handlers, 4 guards currently out. I'm just joining the stream. Did he say when she's expected to practice? As I wrote and have said earlier, I'll repeat it here because we probably have a lot of new. Holy cow. It's been over an hour. I expected to go 20 minutes. Wow. This has been fun and engaging for sure. There's no timeline for her to necessarily return. I think we'll have a better idea at the start of next week. That's what I think is the case right now. I do not have live stream sport. I have no idea who they might bring in. They brought in players I have never heard of, which is crazy. And that speaks to the desperation in the current situation that they're at right now, is that they got to go find players that can maybe solve, players that are available right now. Let's see. Why was the ankle injury reported today and not when it happened? Was this question answered on your Substack and not just because I reported it? It happened because I found out about it. I was not in Phoenix. I didn't see it live. In looking into Caitlyn and why she's been out and such, this came to light when I had conversations with league sources. That's how these type of things can come about. Yes, I would have liked to have it the day of or the day after, but that just is not the case. If you're the team, you have no real great urgency to put it out there or anything like that. So me finding out that info and reporting it adds to painting of this picture of what this season is. I've answered a lot of times my thoughts here. The Fever do have scouts. I do not know the scouting tree or how many or anything like that. But I think that's an area that is emerging and growing across the league, especially when you look at a team like Golden State, who is predominantly foreigners and overseas players. I'm sure scouting is ramping up, but they have had scouting since the beginning. It's just now I think you got to add to it from both a player standpoint and a coverage standpoint across the world. That's a good off-season question for me to write about. Absolutely, Valerie. I'm reading these comments in the comments section, my man. If she injured her ankle 2 weeks ago, why is it? I just answered that. Good question, though. I already answered the thought on blessing in disguise and probably what Coach White meant there. Yeah, Paige and Caitlyn definitely have very different games. Totally agree there. No question. Caitlyn led the league in assists, scoring. Yep. All right. Any other questions? Let's see. I think I'm near the bottom here. I do not know what player you think. I don't know what player they might have in mind. Again, you're working with slim pickings right now. You got the rest of the league that not just has 12 players on every team, but several of them already also have hardship situations. So they're having to deal with that. Amoya, I don't know what these group chats are, what you're referencing. Never entered my bandwidth whatsoever. If it did, somebody should have wrote about it, reported on it. I have not seen anything like that. Was she on track to play against Minnesota if not for the ankle? No, because the injury happened a couple weeks ago, and she still hadn't returned to practice. Therefore, you don't know when she may have played. The hope, I think, was probably to get some practice time in, ideally this week, and start ramping it up. But other things get in the way, and that's okay. As a whole, is the WNBA injury report transparent with the public? That's hard for me to say because I mostly follow it on a Fever and their opponent standpoint. The teams announce kind of what their circumstances are the day before. Yeah, but there's just been so many injuries in this league throughout this year. It's been awful. And that's something that the league as a whole has to get into. It got even worse after the All-Star break because I was kind of baffled that the commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, said, hey, our data says there's no real uptick. It's like, I'm seeing all these great players, Breanna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Caitlin Clark, just to name a couple, who are consistently missing time, and that's not good for the league. Yeah, Angel Reese had an injury. She just came back, I think it was last night. It's good when these great players are back and playing. No, the Fever do have scouts. And that was my question. I was asking Steph, who is she helping to lean on during these times? And so one of the many things you can do, because it's a tight-knit community, is talk with your coaching staff and talk with the players. Kelsey was saying today that she's played with Shea Petty, that they played overseas together. So before I sign her, I'm going to go to Kelsey and say, hey, what do you think about her game? And what do you think about us bringing her on the team? A player like Breon January, I think, played with her as well overseas. So if I'm the front office, before I bring her in, I'm doing the same thing and having those conversations, using all those resources to my advantage. Do I have an opinion on who would work well with this team? I don't know what you mean in terms of players. I assume you mean the hardship exception. And no, I don't, because I'm not sure all the players that are even available. We'll get into free agency conversation in the offseason. No reason to get into that when there's not even a collective bargaining agreement at this juncture. How do I attach videos? I don't think you can attach videos on here. Hey, do I think it's a possibility she plays for the Storm game on Tuesday? I'm not going to speculate there. I do not have the answer to that. It would be great, but I think that would be purely speculation on my part, and I always try to avoid that. Let's see. I explained why she hasn't practiced yet. A couple more questions, and I'll wrap this up. I think 70 minutes is a lot and plenty here. Maybe I've already answered this. If she injured her ankle 2 weeks ago, was it just... I've already answered that. It's because I found it out today. That's why. So Clark stat padded hers. You guys might be on a conversation of your own here. Can I explain why Stephanie White had to branch out using her assistant contacts? I think I just did that. And that's smart to use your contacts. You have front office. You have contacts around the league. You know agents across the world, and you have players across the world, maybe that you've played with or coached previously. So it is smart to tap into your contacts, just like I might for my reporting. I'm not just going to one person and asking a question. I'm bouncing around to get different perspectives from different angles to have a well-rounded picture of what is going on. All right, a couple more questions here. Was Clark's injury caused by no? I've answered that many times. That was Bree stepped on her foot incidentally 2 days later. That's why she grimaced and was in pain, because it was already of concern for Caitlyn. The timeline, that was August 9th. The injury happened on August 7th. I think I'm repeating a lot of answers and a lot of questions here. Yeah, exactly, Susie. It was her former teammate, and Bree has a lot of friends across the world. Bree coached at Arizona State. She coached in the G League. She has agents overseas and friends. Why wouldn't you tap in? I don't know why we're questioning using resources to help make your team better and find someone that fits, because you already have a familiarity with them. Of course, agents are probably pitching their players, but you should lean into players that you're familiar with. What's the ceiling of this team? I think, given the current injury situation, I think the second round of the postseason. I think you could win a series. Depends on your matchups. How many teams have had some growing pains this season? The Aces looked awful for a while. Storm did not look good. Mystics were brutal and now are better. So it just depends on who you match up against. What if Minnesota and Nafisa Collier's out? This Fever team without Caitlyn already went into Minnesota and won. So I don't think it's a championship contending team. I thought all along it would probably take 2 years, and that's probably what we're looking at here. All right. Let's see. Do you think it's smarter to get a lottery pick? No. I hate when people want to think ahead to draft and lottery pick or anything like that. By the way, they're 6th right now. They would have to lose like every single game the rest of the way, and that is not this team's mentality. They're too much of a fighting group. And we heard Stephanie White talk about that today. I encourage you to listen to those comments about how resourceful they've been, how tough and they fought for one another. And I think you do not want to mess with that culture. We see what the positivity has done from the Pacers, and we're seeing that, I think, this year with the Fever surrounding all these different things and how they keep rising above it. So, no, I would not encourage that whatsoever to do that. Team is not mandatory to inform everything that is going on. That's why we ask questions. That's why we talk to different people. That's why we try to get to the bottom of it. I know a lot of you are asking about that, but that's current situation. Excuse me. First round is 1-1-1, right? Because of the Fever last year. They didn't want a situation anymore where not every team had a home game. So that's why you see that. Let's see. Celebration spaces. You're welcome, Al Lakers. Appreciate you jumping on. Yeah, we'll see what Petty and Chloe Bibby are able to do. That is a tongue twister. You're absolutely right. All right, I think this is a good time to wrap it up. I answered probably 100 questions at least, it felt like, during this live stream, and hopefully provide some clarification, some more insight, and a lot more. And also, I just kind of enjoyed this conversation with all of you. So thanks for those of you who joined on and will continue to watch. And if you want to, join me at fieldhousefiles.com. There's free and paid options. Again, if you don't want to pay, that's fine. I don't mind. But also, I have a business to run, just like you guys are working people as well, earning a living. So appreciate your support, whether it's here at fieldhousefiles.com and on social media. Look forward to practice coming up on Thursday, and then Fever start a home against the Minnesota Lynx Friday at Gamebridge Fieldhouse there. And we'll see what Nafisa Collier's status is. That's significant. And so far, she hasn't played in quite a while. That does it for me. Thanks for everybody for watching here, and I will talk to you all again soon. Have a great night, everyone.